we must be. Well, what's up, Colliders? Welcome to the Collision Live. A little later than normal, but I'm here, your host, as always, Daniel, joined at the desk by the just add bacon menu option to my juicy quarter pounder, Mr. Sam Kemp. What is up?
I do love bacon. That's one of the greatest gifts to
that
humanity.
That is a high compliment.
I appreciate
so
that.
It's been a day. It's been a week.
Yeah.
Things have been a little crazy here.
As you can tell, we're having our noon live stream at 3:30. So
yeah, last week we debuted our Tuesday live stream on a Wednesday. This week we are debuting our noon live stream at 3:30. It's been crazy at Collision HQ, but we're happy to be here. Better late than never, and excited to talk about pop culture as we do every week at some point on some given day at some time, and just looking at what's going on in the culture as Christians, and kind of take through the lens of the Bible. How do we engage in these conversations? How do we kind of navigate it? How do we affirm the good, kind of push back against the bad, take a stand, and just have a conversation with you guys, have a conversation with each other, and don't always have the answers, but just kind of talk through what's going on. There's a couple kind of interesting conversations that are not necessarily super just newsy or current, but just kind of bigger cultural things that I think as Christians we should be aware of and kind of wade into. So again, we encourage you guys, if you're watching live or if you're watching later, a stream back later, share your thoughts in the comments section. Let's have a conversation with this. So the first thing, kind of topic that we could get into is Netflix just kind of released this ginormous behemoth casting call for their reality TV series. They have a whole website that's was this launched, I think netflixreality.com or something like that. That's sort of this call out, trying to get more talent, get more participants to join their kind of a whole range of various different reality TV shows, from cooking to dating to anything in between. So of these shows, which one are you signing up for?
I'm definitely going to go for the cooking. Like, what would be more fun than being on a cooking reality TV show?
Yeah, well,
just get a bunch of ingredients and just, sling it all together.
Just mail in one of your casseroles.
Or that one Alone. Have you seen that one?
No.
Yeah. Okay. You just get dropped off like in the British Columbia's wilderness, and the last man standing, is the winner. Yeah. It's crazy.
And the other ones are dead.
I would die. Well, no, you don't die, but you get eliminated through broken legs and medical conditions.
I would not.
Or you can tap out because you're hungry and you haven't eaten for 30 days.
Yeah, that would be me. So reality TV, it's been like a staple in our culture for a while now.
Yeah.
Kind of like the first one I can think of, it probably predates it, but like Survivor. That sort of kind of hit the was huge for so long. I think it's still going, but it's not like the peak.
Yeah.
American Idol, another one that's still going, kind of in its heyday. That was sort of when people think of, I think, reality TV, they think of American Idol or like the Kardashians, or there's a couple of these big ones, but just that whole
like MTV had a bunch of like ones too. I don't remember what they're called, but like I feel like it was just a bunch of dramatic 20-somethings.
Yeah, and there's any possible way to try and kindle the fuels of love, fires of love. There's all these different shows that you can go on to and find your soulmate. So it's not anything new, but I think some of the consequences, or like the results, or like the way that it's sort of wiring people's brain, I think that takes time. Like, you don't see necessarily the impact of kind of growing up or existing in a reality TV world. You don't really begin to see that until a lot later on, as you kind of see the. So I thought we could kind of talk I don't know if we can throw the picture back up that we had. This is from the Netflix, the website, the reality one, and just this picture, to me, you could write a doctoral dissertation kind of unpacking this from a Christian worldview. But this is the front and center: be the real you. So sort of their way, be the real you by coming on this reality TV show, and
pitching us your ideas for how real you're going to be.
Yeah, and get edited in a very weird way. So what do you think? There's lots of ways we can go into this, but to me, this website, this Be the Real You, kind of encapsulates a lot of just sort of the issue or the reality of these shows, and kind of like what is sort of being immersed in this reality TV world just due to our culture, due to us as Christians?
Well, I think it was the precursor to like social media culture now, and so I think what you see now is like everybody's wanting to have some sort of to become like an influencer, or some personality on YouTube. Like here we are talking about this on YouTube. So for all the irony, we get it.
And before we go further, make sure you smash that subscribe button.
Exactly.
And grow the channel. But
yeah, we'll be dropping some merch soon. Stay tuned for that. So you get this whole, like, I feel like a generation, this whole culture now, so much of it, and this isn't everyone, but a lot of people are, they're sort of tapped into this idea that I can actually be somebody via the mechanisms of social media, whether that's YouTube, that's Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Like you can actually become, not necessarily famous, but like be an influencer. You can make a career out of, like, lots of people have made careers on YouTube. I still think that's the exception. And so but because you're seeing all these like normal people doing cool stuff on YouTube and making money at it, it seems like the barrier to like stardom and fame and fortune has been lowered a lot. And maybe in some ways it's been democratized, but I also think it's just, now we're just a culture of like blatant narcissists. I think we were probably always narcissistic, but like now it's like on full display. It's like there's no level that people won't go to sort of do it for the gram, or so all these things that are happening now. I feel like as a result of the sort of the priming of like reality TV, 20 years ago, and now social media today, where it's like, no, you like, if you didn't put it on Instagram, did it really happen? And like,
and here's the kind of the irony too, because sometimes that like kind of like the social media side of it, of just sort of being like this prominent, kind of having this affirmation from whether it's reality TV or it's like kind of an influencer, it sort of has this like stigma. It's almost like we've talked about with like video games, like it sort of has a stigma of like, that's what the kids these days, everything but like when I think like the boomers, like the older people in my life that I know, like they're probably on their phones and stuff more than I am. Like,
right.
The sort of the stigma that only the younger, the younger peeps want to become Insta famous and all this stuff.
Well, there's
not really reality. Like it's,
no.
Twitter,
like it's everybody. Like it's not just like a young person's thing. I think it's, and the thing too, the great thing about, like, let's say a platform like YouTube is like, you can, like, whatever your interest is, like you can find somebody who has a channel dedicated to that interest. And so in that way, it's like really cool, because it's like you've got these people who have had this lifelong passion for, log cabin building or something. And it's like, you can go watch this guy build a log cabin, and he's really good at it. And like now he has a YouTube channel and he's built this community around it. So like in some ways it's really interesting, but in other ways it's like everyone just wants to kind of be this gregarious personality and just sort of get their affirmation from the internet.
And you see that too, even just with obviously, I think any sensible person knows that, like, reality TV is probably more fictional than like a sitcom, like a fictional. And I've talked to people that were in Hollywood working on some of these things, and just some of the behind the scenes of like how they cut. Like, well, this response actually came from a different conversation. Like the way that they actually put together this reality. Most of it's,
and you've got producers saying, "Hey, go ahead and just
most of it's
this will be great."
Like, we know, people know that that's part of the appeal, is you sort of set aside the fact that that it's all fake. It's not like watching like WWE wrestling or something, like it's fake, but you just gotta accept it.
What do you mean?
But you do see fake? Like I think there is sort of still that pull as Christians. Like I think of like on Twitter and sort of this sort of drive to have a platform. Like it's all you see a lot more kind of Christian prominent people, pastors or writers, like even in their bios is always influencer or like different things that sort of this kind of almost like falling victim to the same need to kind of have a platform, and you got to build your audience, and less than just, you got to be faithful and do what God's called you to. Like, not that those two are exclusive and you can't do both, and you shouldn't build a platform and all that. I know the business side of it, but like there is that kind of universal draw to like,
it's so enticing, I think, for people.
You kind of almost have to have some platform or some validation for you as like a figure, to be the real you. You almost got to embrace this like artificial.
You got to have everyone else. You have to have all these strangers tell you how real you are, and how great you've been for their life. And so it's like you just need this affirmation from the ether to come in and just affirm you.
And I will say, as a side note, Lego Masters. I'm not a reality. I guess the competition shows count as reality TV.
Yeah.
I'm not tuning in like Sam to watch The Bachelor every week, but I will watch Lego Masters. If you guys have not seen that show, it is fantastic. We watch it with our with my kids. But again, I don't know. I think you're right. There is so much connection between like the social media and the reality TV, and I think sometimes as Christians we can kind of speak against that. Like, Christians, if you are watching The Bachelor, you need to go home and, reevaluate your life. And, the Kardashians, we need to think beyond that. But I think we don't always, in some ways we're blind to how much we're also, not that we're going to be famous on a reality TV show, but we are pulled into that same, and we got to fight that. And just sort of the idea that, we don't define the real us. Doesn't require a reality TV that, we have our identity somewhere else.
And I think it does show too that the fact that Netflix is doing this, like, I do think that maybe shows that they see YouTube as a threat competitively in the marketplace, because like YouTube has kind of democratized this ability for anybody to, it costs nothing to create a YouTube channel and start doing your thing. And so I think it's an interesting play for Netflix to kind of cast this broad net and looking for new ideas, and like, are they going to do more sort of unpolished type of things to try and appeal to those people who, watch a lot more YouTube than they do, say, fully produced, Hollywood made shows. And so it's an interesting time for sure.
Yeah, so again, we encourage you guys. Let us know what your favorite reality TV show is.
Yeah.
If you are indulging in that, but it will be interesting to see it. The reality TV craze is maybe not as much at its peak as, at least it seems to me, as it once was.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the tendencies are just sort of shifting around in different ways. So we'll be curious to see how that plays out. Moving on to the next section on our live stream, we got pop culture news. So there wasn't a ton this week of stuff that, as I was perusing the entertainment sites, but a couple things kind of stood out to me. One, I don't know if you saw the whole hubbub about I Am Legend, the zombie apocalypse movie with Will Smith. He's like the last guy standing. That movie, it's an older movie now. It's kind of got pulled back into the pop culture consciousness because it's being kind of used by people to argue against vaccinations and all that. We can't speak too much on that, or YouTube's going to shut us down. We're not going to wade into that part of it, but it is just interesting that people whenever pop culture kind of becomes we kind of latch on to like pop culture and stories as a way to kind of make sense, even if it's in a crazy way.
Well, I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, my wife and I watched Contagion.
Yeah, that like shot to the top of
prepare ourselves.
So again, I get a kick anytime pop culture kind of gets pulled into current conversations. Suicide Squad did poorly at the box office. People were talking about that. If you guys noticed, we haven't had a review of Suicide Squad on this channel. I got 30 minutes into that, and I could not stomach it. I had some issues with it. Just too vulgar, too loud, too obnoxious. And I just, normally I power through those, do a review. I tapped out for this one. But it seems like a lot of people are tapped out. I don't know if that's because of HBO Max or this COVID or what it is, but it's definitely not doing as well as it was supposed to. Celebrities have been debating and sharing about their showering routines, how often they shower. Just shows you that celebrities
they never run out of things.
They always have more to say. I did get a kick out of Quentin Tarantino. There's a story about him, the director, done a bunch of stuff that there's a story going around about him, about how his mother, when he was a kid, told him like that he was wasting his life by trying to focus on writing and not a more profitable career. So he vowed as a kid that his mother would never see a cent of any of his earnings. And now he's like one of the most successful directors and writers that there's ever been. And he has still not given any money to his mother. So I don't know what that says about him, but it's just...
Yeah, that could be unpacked for a while.
Yeah, so parents, be careful with how you encourage or discourage your kids in their pursuits. The last thing I thought we could talk about, Dune. We've been talking about that as often as we can because it's going to be awesome.
Because it's Dune.
Because it's Dune and we're pumped for it. They just released the official poster for it. This thing looks awesome. It looks like almost like an old, like a Star Wars poster with all the characters' heads and design. I don't know if it was intentionally that. Really not a whole lot to talk about with that other than...
It seems very fitting for the for the movie. So
yeah, so we're
excited.
We've been getting pumped up for that for a bit. Any of that thing that stand out?
Well,
pop
I
culture?
will mention the one thing that was not on your list, and that is a new trailer for a Clint Eastwood film, which sort of seems like his swan song, perhaps. Like he's actually acting in this. I'm not sure if he's directing it, but it's Cry Macho is the name of the.
How old is?
He's like in his 90s.
Yeah.
So like I'm amazed that he's, doing all that he's doing, but he's just in my mind one of the goats in the film industry, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how that shapes up as well. So
Yeah, what a talented guy to transition from being a superstar actor to a superstar director.
yeah.
So the next, speaking of superstars and leading men and controversial stuff, Matt Damon he's been in a lot of stuff, Bourne Identity, Jason Bourne himself. I know he's been in a lot of stuff since then. He's in the news for kind of running his mouth, and it's I got a kick out of we'll kind of get into what this means as a Christian, but if we can throw the picture up, I saw this on like a pop culture news website, and to me it was just like encapsulates our culture in the year 2021.
Yeah.
You have a story of Matt Damon kind of sharing a very kind of grandstanding story about how he learned to stop using sort of some kind of gay slurs, and as his daughter helped him see that that these words and slang that he grew up kind of surrounded by, that they're actually dangerous and harmful, and it's kind of a like a pump up piece for him as far as look at him, he is kind of more enlightened now,
He's growing and
then
maturing and being a better person.
and then literally 2 articles later on the same site, you have an article that was published later that day about how everyone is mad at him for sharing that, and how he's just now overcoming these slurs, and he was just using them recently, and he had to kind of come out and backtrack and kind of undo what he had said. And then sandwiched right between that, you have a genderless fairy in the new Cinderella story. So that is our culture 2021. We won't get into the Cinderella part of that story, but I think there is some stuff in the whole saga of the Matt Damon thing. And again, I actually like Matt Damon. I think he's a cool guy. I like a lot of his movies. But there's a lot in just that image of like kind of I've grown, I've become a better person, I've turned my ways, and kind of apologizing for what I used to be, and then having to apologize for having not had that moment sooner. Is this very much a testament to our culture, I think, where things sort of the norms, what's accepted is changing. Every day it seems sort of what was okay or what we're used to now is not okay. And it sort of this kind of Pharisee mindset of it's not okay just to grow and become a better person. You need to have done that yesterday, or the day before.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's so much to kind of dissect with that. But I think one thing is like when you grow and you mature as a person, do you need to tell everyone that like, hey, I stopped doing this bad thing that I used to do? It's like, or do you just need to stop doing it, and that's reward enough that like you've matured as a person, and like you don't need to get some publicity out of it? And it's sort of, I mean, I think maybe the more cynical take is like that's sort of Hollywood being Hollywood, like, hey, come pat me on the back for how progressive I am, and then not being able to read the room at all.
Because that is the irony, is like that
initial
initial story, and again, I commend him. I think that is he should not be using slurs like that. But that interview and that article was totally just like manufactured to lift him up as sort of this like, I'm a progressive hero, I've overcome. We need to not.
Well, the whole like
backfired spectacularly in his face. Which you can't win. Like you can't.
No, and I think that's the thing, and I think it highlights again, and we've talked about this before, but just the absolute gracelessness of our culture right now, and you could say, yeah, well, this person should have known better or whatever. Like you can make excuses for just about anything, but I think it again just shows you that like there's like actually no grace in our culture right now, any direction. Like you could do something that you think is very supported by conservatives, and actually no, that wasn't conservative enough, or you get slammed by liberals, and vice versa. And so I think what it shows is that nobody is showing grace. And again, it kind of goes back to this social media and the ills that it has brought on our society. Is it's like, because everyone's just thinking about the quick wins and sort of the the likes that they can get by dunking on whoever for whatever purpose, to kind of, beef up their tribe. And sort of like the people who write hit pieces on people like that they're only doing it because like they want everyone else to say, oh, look how, like, yeah, you called him out, like, look how on it you were because you saw the hypocrisy of this other person. And so it's like, it's all just a kind of this pile on game, and there's no grace anywhere in it.
Yeah, and it's kind of this like ugly kind of 1-2 punch of, I think you see society now, there's so much of this like kind of zealous fervor for like, we need to change and everything needs to be, you need to grow and no longer do this, even if that was kind of acceptable yesterday, now it's not.
Yeah, even though you yourself were doing it like 2 days ago.
How dare you to be doing the thing that I was doing last week? So there's sort of that kind of mixed with just a complete lack of grace and like freedom or allowance for people to grow, to actually have those. And it is, you see it even like a Hollywood superstar can kind of get, eaten up in some of that. And it can be tricky because there's sort of like, some of these things, like I think in this case, there are things that should be overcome or should be changed. But as things are changing so much in our culture and what the norms are and kind of, where the goalposts are, like there needs to also be grace to, for people to learn these or come through these. And again, in the story, he kind of shares like, it wasn't just that he was hateful towards gay people or something. It's just this language was used growing up all the time, and it was used in one of his scripts, and that was just what he was familiar with. And like I even think of my, personally, like with some of like the racial reconciliation stuff, like some of the, like the colorblindness, right? I don't see color, like, for a long time. I heard that, like, yeah, that sounds right to me. I think that's probably the Christian thing. And having talked to some other people and kind of working through that, I kind of see, okay, actually, and again, you might not agree with that, but, I kind of see why that is more harmful than good, and that it's not necessarily meaning what I thought it would. But I needed time to kind of process that.
Right.
And there needs to be kind of patience for stuff like that. Like I think in our culture, and that's kind of where, when our culture is devoid of grace, like in a way that should reflect on the church as being like, hey, you're not going to find grace or patience there. So you better find it here. Like,
and again, like what a great opportunity for the church to be the church and be full of grace and truth. I think right now, at least, it seems like the church at large is really keen to be full of truth, but not so much on the grace. Like they just want to, like, they're just as quick to sort of condemn some pastor that didn't toe the line on some particular cultural issue, whatever it is, whether it's critical race theory or whatever the hot issue is. And churches are just as divisive and just as divided as the rest of the country and the rest of the culture is. And so it's a shame because it seems like now, in I think one of the more darker periods of our country, what a great opportunity for the church to be the church and say, no, actually, we're going to be full of grace. Like, okay, sure, you're rough around the edges. Like, okay, like we'll accept that. Like, but we'll grow and change and help you do the same, rather than just being like, oh, like you said our trigger word, you can't be part of our fellowship now. Like,
and even just growth, because that's sort of that's built into the faith. And like I think of like a celebrity like a Justin Bieber, who's sort of gone through a spiritual awakening, I guess, and has been speaking way more openly about faith issues and stuff. And like doesn't mean everything he says I would stamp the biblical orthodoxy stamp of approval on. And obviously he's a young pop star, and it doesn't mean you don't call out when things are wrong, but you kind of see some of the lack of grace even from like the Christian community, where it's like, okay, you're kind of coming to Jesus moment, but like you don't get it. Like you're still saying things that are wrong. Like how dare you? I thought you were Christian. It's like, how do you not know?
How dare you not know the thing that I've known my entire life because I grew up in the church, or like it's like. It's the same. I feel like, unfortunately, it's the same way with a lot of people in the church. Like when someone new comes in, especially someone who's a public figure, it's like, what, you don't know, like, this whole lineage of orthodoxy that we know. Like, how do you not know that already? Like, your second day,
Well,
like
it makes you think of and I know like alcohol and drinking and stuff. I know there is room for discussion on that as biblically and stuff. But I remember like our first, we were part of a church plant in San Francisco. I was in seminary housing, and we invited some new believers from our church to come to this party that we were having at, on campus in a very conservative Southern Baptist seminary. And like it's almost all these like, people training to be ministers, and we all had to sign these codes of conduct. And like they show up just, lugging just a ton of booze, and their idea of a party was like, and I remember like no one made them feel bad about it, and like they, like we weren't allowed to drink it or anything, but just sort of that grace of like, you know what, they didn't know that this community wasn't going to do that. Like, it doesn't make them a bad person, doesn't make us judgmental for not being able to do that. Like, just sort of that grace. And I think that's sort of what I get from this, from this story. I don't know what Matt Damon's motives were to try and kind of pump himself up, but you just kind of see again and again that the world is lacking the grace that the church is supposed to have. And in some ways, the less there is in the world, kind of the more that will hopefully point people back to the church. But let us know what you guys think of the whole conversation. There's a lot to dig into in that, but we'd be curious to just have a conversation about that. So this week at The Collision, it's been a crazy week. Don't have a whole lot just like of new articles and stuff. I encourage you guys, if you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel. Check out the movie reviews that we do every week. We do have pretty big plans for a lot more content and video. I know we keep saying that, but it's in development, kind of more cultural videos and questions and doing some cool stuff. So I encourage you guys, jump in now, join The Collision, be a collider.
Yeah.
And if you haven't done so, if you're just watching us video only, could you check out thecollision.org? That's our website. If you're into the reading thing, we have articles. And
who reads these
if
days?
You still do that. We also have some videos on the website too. A lot of stuff going on our page and our ministry, and we're just excited to kind of grow the community and see what happens. But
just try and show a bit more grace this week than you did last week. That would be my 2 cents.
Don't be a jerk. Don't take showering advice from celebrities. And have a great week. Thanks for your patience for our hiccups getting this thing going. But hey, it was still fun to do it.
Yeah.
Next week, fingers crossed, knock on wood, we will be live on Tuesday at noon, not 3:30. So we'd love to have you guys join us. Have a great week, guys, and continue to collide with your world for Christ.